All right, so I'm getting a reconnection message. Sorry, this seems to be the second time in as many days that this has happened, and I'm wondering if this is related to the new VPN that I'm using. I'll just put a quick message. So I do apologize about that. I do try to keep the stream consistent, and it seems that both Wednesday and Friday sort of produced, or sorry, Wednesday and today produced a problem. So I'm actually quite happy with this VPN. But if this is the cause, this is the biggest thing that's changed. And I didn't have a problem the last stream, but I did have a longer period of uptime this time around. So we'll see. I do also have a couple of features enabled for it to, well, anyways, it doesn't matter. But there are a couple of reasons why it might suddenly die oh, sorry. But welcome, Winter Monarch. You're just arriving after the technical issues, it seems. So anyways, I don't think there's too much. I seem to detect the technical problem, so I don't think there's that many missed books. But here we're reading On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Loss. That will get me... Let me just double check. Okay, so 3 for pentaments and precursors. This is for solutions and separations, so 1. Yep. Pattern seems to make sense here, so... I think we're on to Twin Serpent Tantra. It's that or Cardia's Delights, but... Okay, so that should be the 2 that we need for solutions and separations. I'll also take a minute here, so we'll set aside a shaft for this one. Pentaments and precursors will set one aside for health. And then I did say I was going to put something into serpents and venoms, so scale and moon. So for that, we'll use... I'm actually going to use another health here. So let's do the... Well, I guess I did the Concursum Diaries recently, so... let's do Collected Hush House Lectures on this one. So there's my moon. I'll use a core on this one. Let's think about some scale. If it's available. Maybe another moon wouldn't be the worst. Oh, we can read Unhatched Hymns. So that should leave us... It should be that we're only left with the Ragged Crossroads, which we're not quite sure what to do with yet. Which, of course, means I'm just back to reading the existing texts that were already on the list. Obviously, this is about digesting what we got from the Salon, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Okay, so I think for the next little bit, my focus is going to be on Mrs. Kill. Again, we're going to open up the sealed vault when the time comes. I will also mention that I have 3 texts with Newman that I haven't opened up or read yet, so eagerly we anticipate our work. So, Sun's Weakness. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. At which point we will feed... Oh, actually, that's one other thing I can do. Actually, a couple of other things I can do. So, 1, we can make a Witching to Sane. And then I set aside but did not actually start to brew the replacement. So renounce or brew. Brew over the fire, bring water to the boil, permit the potential here to express itself. We should have a few places we can do this. Field goddess Lapsang Suchong, named for an enigmatic minor deity whose charge is the healing of burns. Bring the water to the boil, permit the potential here to express itself. Oh. And then the long tower study fireplace. The fireplace doesn't exactly warm the room, but it keeps the chill more or less at bay. And I'm just trying to go by the highest numbers here. So brew over the fire, bring the water to the boil, permit the potential here to express itself. Coffee from beyond the great deserts. All right, so for the most part, we're just going to wait for... another thing that I could do as an aside would be I could prep the next Salon, but that seems a little premature at this point. The skill is now level 9. Its power aspects have also increased. So obviously there's a ton of stuff that I can commit to the Tree of Wisdoms right now, but I don't need to, so that's kind of why I haven't done it yet. All right, let's feed you our pear meringue. Offer something to eat. I can offer my assistant something to eat. This will increase their aspect. It's also just friendly. Steam and scent both rise. It's ready. All right, there's the Evening Isles coffee. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge in terms of working out where to put all this stuff. So I'm going to look for a few different tables. A lot of them already have drinks, but if I can, I'd like to put these in places that sort of make sense. So I wonder if we can make space. Yep. All right, Dawnline coffee. I mean, I suppose in a pinch we just replace it in the guard room. And here... hard to think of a really appropriate place in the dawn period. I have one if I have to, and I may have to. You devoted one of your vaults to vegetables. Interesting. I see you have something called an Avenue of Inquiry. I've never seen that. What is it? So Winter Monarch, this is a... basically, there's a couple of things that you can do with it here. The first thing is that I got this by fulfilling further stories. So it tells you... I'm trying to remember if it tells you ahead of time for following a certain path you get a... get or not. I'm actually also trying... it's not a Wild Surmise. There's a... oh, also, the Wild Surmise isn't something persistent. That's good to know. I'm trying to remember what this was called. Anyways, so this is a second stage item that you can get. So there's something that you get from completing a further story, and I'm sorry, I'm really not remembering what it is right now. But I did... I got 2 of them through completing the... the further story. One of them was for Arthur Moore, and the other one... Connie. So those are pretty good memories that you can just use on your own already. When you combine them, then you get the Avenue of Inquiry. And as Danny said, that this is something from the House of Light expansion. So Avenue of Inquiry, a recourse that a wise librarian might employ only as a versatile memory. There is an alternative. Great Ink of Power, Handy Soul Element, Incaution, Readiness, Blank Writing Medium, Inquiry via this avenue. Wise? Absence is true skill. So I'm going to see if I can get this working. I remember there was one time I tried to do it and it didn't turn out for me. But I'm going to add the Avenue of Inquiry. We will add a writing medium. And then, of course, as it specifies, an Ink of Power. So in this case, I'm just going to take the Orpiment Exultant because I have a ton of it. There we go. All right. So when you combine that, you get a meddle. So it is not the librarian's business to meddle in the world beyond Hush House, but sometimes the librarian gets curious. Sometimes the librarian misuses their prerogatives because they grow restless. This will precipitate an incident, if any yet remain undrawn. If there's already an incident, visitors might not initially interact with the one you intend. Investigate informedly, ease recipient. So, the basically well, it does say Handy Soul Element in the description. So, but basically, it's a little way. I'm trying to think. I think the comparison I would make would be the way that Porphyryne now works. So. I can't remember the last time that you'd played this Winter Monarch, but I remember there was a time in this where Porphyryne was just another great Ink of Power, and a really common observation that people made was like, okay, I really like this, but Numa isn't deterministic, and just how long am I going to need to wait to finish my game? And so Porphyryne was changed so that it's a unique Great Ink in the sense that you can use Nock, Rose, or Moon, and it does prevent you can't use stuff like a Wormwood Dream. Basically, it can have Nock, Rose, or Moon, but it can't have Edge, Heart, or Winter. But assuming you use that, and assuming that you pay the price, which is Spintria, the game says that, Numa isn't bidden, but in practice what's going to happen is when you use Porphyryne in this way, you can summon Numa. You are guaranteed to get a Numa when you send that off, even though the game says that you don't get, there isn't a promise. So this is effectively the further story / event version of Porphyryne, where by completing a number of events, you can gain the ability, if you want, with the Avenue of Inquiry, to bring about new events in the world. And the practical benefit of that, I think what the problem this is intending to solve, and please keep in mind that this is the version that I started in the beta, so the Curia, the Lighthouse Institute, sorry, not Curia, but the Lighthouse Institute screen's going to look a little bit different here. But you have different choices in terms of these different roles for the Lighthouse Institute. And so, as you might imagine, you may have preferences in terms of who the characters are, but the characters also require the inspired attribute or the aspect. So, again, I don't know this for sure. It's not like, Weather Factory's kind of come right out and said that this is the purpose of the Avenue of Inquiry. But I think the purpose here is to avoid creating a situation in which the player is sitting in Hush House doing literally nothing except fast forwarding for a new season, so that they can hope that they can find a further story that at some point will bring in a character that they can then inspire and then make the Lighthouse Institute that they want. I think that's what that item there is for. But again, it's a nice little memory that you can hang on to, and if you need it, if you want to use it to level something up, you can use it for that as well. That's probably more than you were bargaining for in terms of an experiment, Winter Monarch, but that's what I've gotten so far out of this. Also, it shares the icon with the Stag Doors riddle. Okay, The White Book of Brittany, a volume of death lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The white flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deeper than snow. The white flower is described as the death of wisdom, but wisdom can pass into sleep, not death, when the rage of glass is subjected to a sufficiently powerful winter aspect, while the ragged crossroads arts are invoked. So this doesn't offer a whole lot more on my question about the inks and the flowers, but it is something that I'll want to think about. On the matter and deeds of serpents, this was probably the prophecies of the Naga rendered into English and illustrated by William Midnight in Paris in the 1880s, but it shows a number of divergences from that text. It's certainly quite recent by the standards of VAC texts. The serpent folk called the Great Hooded Princes came to know the order called the House of Leith and warred across the miles with them. They made an alliance with the mother of ants, whose children they had been. The text describes how the Great Hooded Princes escaped, or will escape, from the Fifth History, where they had died, or were doomed to die. They engaged in a secret conquest of the land of the Great River, called India in some histories, and have ensured that all other conquests of that land are false conquests. So the secret threshold is going to be used for, solutions and separations. The Red Book of Brittany, a volume of ink lore gifted St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The red flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree are constant. The red flower is described as the temptation of suffering, but its suffering can apparently be allayed when the copper fruit is enspelled with nectar aspect alongside herbs and infusions techniques. A variant of the same approach, with the inks of power techniques outlined here, can gentle lethe into a great ink. So, satisfaction, that's going to be for the pentiments and precursors. We can actually level that up right now, but we might as well harvest the rest of the memories. The Twin Serpent Tantra. Just before the outbreak of the Great War, Alexander Sparrow, almost certainly a pseudonym, published leaflets claiming the influence of snake princes on world affairs. The text called the Twin Serpent Tantra was his primary inspiration. The Tantra describes the Great Hooded Princes, a dynasty of unclear origin, engaging in prayers, sacrifices, and poetry in honor of the Key Serpent, the Crossroads Twins, and the Mirror Queen. Nagai encircles, Nagai arises from wounds, Nagai spares those who are already harmed. The Great Hooded Princes are described as having escaped from the history of their death to a history where they yet live. The text claims that there are now 108 of them, but in one of many instances of twinnedness before they crossed from their death chronicle, there were only 54. Collected Hush House Lectures. In the 1800s, Dr. Aaron Peel was invited to give a series of lectures to the Curia. They combine his pithy view of the histories with his particular brand of unhelpfully ironical insight. 1776, the Third History. Louis declares the Mask of Masks and forbids mention of the Great Writhing within the walls of the Palace of Versailles, although by this point the worms are observed to move openly along the boulevards of Paris, sometimes even in daylight. The army is redeployed to defend the court. The mask lasts 1 lunar month and tracks several of the long abroad in Western Europe at the time, fleeing the worms, or hoping to take advantage of the desperate Louis, or seeking access to the sealed mirrors of the palace, or just eager to attend the most inventive and desperate debauch of the century. Many espouse wormish sympathies. Let 100 histories flourish, tear down the tyranny of eternity. To grow long is usually to cast off these sympathies. There would be no immortality without eternity, and eternity, we often seem to decide, is only tyranny as long as we are not eternal. Intuition. You just know, you know? So that'll go with the Magaphine Mysteries. Was it the collected Hush House lecture? There's one where it's actually ambiguous about whether it is in fact Peel. It's so the Flayed Tantra. This Tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, with many of the qualities of a mythological Naga. The Flayed Tantra played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering. So if you give him this one, he will scold you, undiplomatic librarian. But there was another one which... what was it? There's one for Aaron, and it's not Aaron Peel, because this one's very clear in terms of... Actually, I believe I've given him all of the different ones. So, yeah, Radical Measure also clearly says Aaron Peel. Maybe I haven't done it this time around. I can never remember this book. Like, I'll usually like pause for a long time and see if I can remember, and then it just kind of comes to me. But there's a book which says it's written by Aaron, and that's one where it expresses confusion about whether it's... Well, I can find... Like, I've written all this stuff down. It's finding it is the fun, right? I wish I remembered this. See, I was pretty sure I had talked to him. Artsman, I don't think there are any dumb questions, but yes, please feel free to ask a question. I'm always happy to do my best in terms of the game. Welcome, by the way. I'm not going to spend too much time finding our friend's book, but I'm curious if it's labeled as such. Okay, well, I guess when I said it's fun to find them, I wasn't clear. But yeah, please, Artsman, ask your question if you'd like. Unhatched Hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The Hymn of the Phases celebrates the Meniscate, from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The Hymn of the Reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of Shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. A music that urges valor and violence. Alright, so I think I overdid it on... I think I overdid it on the pentiments and precursors questions, but... I am trying to make tea with the pretty blue flowers, and for the life of you, you cannot figure out how. Is there a specific skill that I need? I have access to the kitchen. I don't think so. So I believe the flowers that you're referring to are Blue Crown, and I have some of those sitting around, so I'm just going to show you how I make it. I can't use this kitchen just because I'm using it right now, but in this case I can go down to the Hall of Voices, and the only difference here will be what what elements of the soul that I can use. So for pretty much any kind of crafting, you're always going to need an element of the soul. There are very few things in this game that don't require an element of the soul. And in fact, I remember the day on Twitter, the designer saying, I've implemented a change I know people will hate. You have to use an element of the soul to do. I'm trying to remember the thing that he had put in. But anyways, yeah, there's a limit in terms of what you can do. People do the analogy of the spoons for that, for instance. But yeah, your question was, okay, how do I make the Blue Crown tea? Or at least I think that's what you were referring to. Please let me know if I've misunderstood the flour. In this case, all of the cooking stations are going to accept these as an ingredient. Now, this is different from the usual teas because you're brewing a specific one. But in this case here, you should just be able to put the Blue Crown in with an element of the soul, and you should see the change happen here. So you shouldn't require any other skills or memories. If you put a skill in, what might happen is it might think that you're trying to do some other type of crafting. So for instance, if I I can't put quenchings and quellings in here. So what can I do? Edicts inviolable. So in this case, you'll notice now it's trying to do Solomon's preparation. And that's because it's sort of overriding the, it's kind of overriding the presence of the ingredient. But to my understanding, if you put an element of the soul and an ingredient inside, it should make the Blue Crown. But yeah, it's actually very. It sounds like the pennies dropped, so I'm hoping that helped you. But it's actually a very easy mistake to make for the simple reason that because Spices and Savors has spicing, this is the one unique one which will actually wind up giving you the proper recipes in the, well, clearly there's some that I haven't done yet. Or maybe these are, yeah, well, there's clearly one spicing that I haven't put together. But Spices and Savors, so far as I can tell, is the only skill that will be connected to crafting certain items. And so in this case here, I think it's just a little confusion on the part of the game in terms of what you can make. And obviously the same goes for the Honey Scar Jasmine tea and the Fragrant Chalice tea. You should be able to do each of those. And if that doesn't cover your question, please, I don't mind digging in a little bit deeper. But I know like 9 times out of 10 when I have a uncharacteristic response when I put something into a crafting station, it's usually because either something's in there that's getting in the way, or there's like a subtle condition that I don't have. So like, I think there was one on the subreddit recently where somebody said, hey, I'm trying to level up my skills. Why can't I level up the skill? And when you look at the screenshot, everything seems to be fine, right? They've got 2, whatever element of the soul it was. They've got all of the items. But if you look carefully, one of them is the plus element of the soul and the other one is not the plus element of the soul. So in this case, they're combining 2 different elements of the soul, and that's why that wasn't working. I haven't, Winter Monarch. It's actually, so normally those sorts of things I'm a little careful to read because those often deal with things that I haven't fully had to think myself about. One of the drawbacks about streaming this game so much is that the majority of my Book of Hours time is now actually streaming it. And I've noticed that as much as I sort of like to try and talk about lore stuff, I don't really get to sort of sit down and ponder it quite the way that I would. So like, I remember when I first played Cultist Simulator on sort of my own time, I'd have this notebook and it looks like a madman's writing into this stuff, but I really just enjoyed sort of digging into it and having a lot of fun with it. And don't get me wrong, like I wouldn't trade it. I'd stream this game for a reason. But one of the big drawbacks is that Book of Hours is a game I really have not sat down on my own and really like jumped into the game and treated it kind of the same way that I've done Cultist Simulator. I do have notes. I have quite a few notes in here, but I haven't actually sat down and done that sort of comprehensive look at the game and sort of played on my own time. I've always sort of played it as streaming, really. And so there's a small drawback in the sense that there's definitely some avenues that I'd like to go down, and I as a result, it does mean that I'm a little limited in terms of some of the things that I look at on the subreddit, just because, in the end, I like to take my first crack at things. I don't know. I'm a bit stubborn when it comes to this, but I find this is also helpful in my work. So like, even when I was doing like the price index stuff, there's like that, to a certain extent, you're just applying well-known formulas. But I've always really enjoyed that process of,
I would never want to belong
I don't
to
know.
any club
Thank you very
or
much,
have someone leave
Artsman.
for a memory.
I know you came in with a question and now you're just hearing, me rant about things that are only tangentially related to the game. So I appreciate that. But there is the one thing that I've really learned to enjoy, and I actually think I felt a little bit of reinforcement when I read this. I don't want to mislead people, but I think I actually read this in a book called Make It Stick, which talked a little bit of the advantage of struggling with a problem before you go and find the answer. And there's a couple of important things about this technique. And again, I don't remember this well. I certainly have done this prior to reading this book, but all right, sorry, just give me a second here. I got a likely ban evader to deal with. No, I appreciate the link, Winter Monarch. So if nothing else, I'll keep that in my pocket, because I'm not going to be sort of in the dark or in the shadow of Calyptra. I'm not going to be that way forever, right? So if I have an opportunity to come back to it, so much the better. But I did want to try and communicate this idea. So again, I'm pretty sure this comes from the book Make It Stick. It's actually kind of hard to get nowadays, but it is available in my local library. And I think the idea was, so there is value in struggling with a problem. So like, I always like to give the example of like calculus, right? I don't think anybody who has to take, first year calculus in university is happy to be there. It's just one of those things that you have to do. And there are going to be problems which have nothing to do with establishing proofs or establishing like fundamentals on this. You're just grinding out numbers so that you can understand how the different derivation rules work. And some of them are going to, like, I can actually remember a couple of Calc 3 assignments that were real naughty ones. And that's fine. I mean, again, you need stuff that tests you. But the conclusion out of this was, even if you don't feel like you are making progress, even if you are stuck, that process of struggle actually is useful. But it is on the condition that it is a problem that conceivably you may be able to solve, right? So if you are sitting down and, you're like me, and, when I first went to university, I thought I was going to do philosophy. So, if this is something at the frontier of physics research, there is no hope that I'm going to have even, the prerequisites for the prerequisites, right? That is so beyond my experience and understanding. That is not something I'm really going to be able to grasp. Calculus, yeah, I wasn't great at math when I started, but when I knew I was doing econ, I got better. So, but basically the process of struggling with it, and then sort of either having the option of looking in the back of the textbook, talking to your TA, those resources to show you the path to the conclusion. This apparently is a demonstrated, like, in terms of doing proper studies and the, there's a whole literature in terms of effective modes of education, right? But essentially this is supposed to be a much more effective way of making sure that material sort of sticks in your head. So I'm a bit lucky in the sense that this is the way that I've very often tried to tackle problems. It actually created a problem in school when my peers all had the answers to the homework assignments, which had not changed over multiple years, because now I'm competing with people who are effectively getting perfect marks but not doing the work. But that process of going through trying to solve it and not even necessarily getting it right, but knowing that when there's the option, I can go and I can maybe figure it out. It's something that I have not just found works well for me, but it's actually something that I really enjoy. And it's the reason why I sometimes become a little bit disappointing when it comes to the to checking out the posts and such. Because in the end, I know I have the option of checking out the post, and that is the second part, right? I kind of want to see how they align with the community understanding. But I sort of realize that if I do that early enough in the process, then some of the fun stuff that I get later on is sometimes set aside. So for what it's worth, I realize I'm not trying to convince people that this is the right way to play Book of Hours. This is just my way that I do these things and why I'm sometimes annoying about the subreddit. All right, on Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Lost. An account of an occult romance. A certain Para, son of Aaron, claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Damascene branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who rejected their past and future. The laws of the house forbade Matthias to love. The customs of the wood forbade the Imago to remain, so he conjured her a final time, when she had uncovered the shears of Alcapura, and she suffered him to cut the wings from her back, so that she might remain, and he suffered her to cut the parts which hold man's seed, to keep them from the detestable act. This was love in all its blood and joy. We have cast out Matthias from the house. In the cradle of the roots, Matthias and the Imago left their names, and though their names were lost, they found their name day riddles. This we recall in solution and separation, so that in the presence of the moth, our memories may become our futures. Do this wisely, in memory of the name and the long, who gave up their past that they might be together forgotten. All right, there's a stolen secret. Okay, so let's take a minute here, because the plan that I had originally was to do Serpents and Venoms. Edicts Liminal was going to go to Solutions and Separations, and then Wolf Stories was going to go to Pentiments and Precursors. And I think we are good to go for all of these anyway, but I still have one more than I wanted. But that's okay. I don't think there's too... Hang on. Huh. Oh, right, because it's Nectar and Scale, and I keep finding uses for Nectar and Scale. Oh, thank you very much for the sub, Winter Monarch. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, my Pentiments and Precursors are currently right, because I used them on the beach. So let's take the time. We'll level up Serpents and Venoms instead. And I did have some set aside, but I think I shuffled them back into the deck. So this isn't a huge problem, though. Consider I am no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Okay, so we should be able to clear out all of the all of the lessons that we got from the Salon, and then in the next step, here's our Witching to Sane. It's best when it's warm, but it'll keep. We're gonna feed that to Mrs. Kill when we can. But yeah, so once we take care of the lessons from, once we take care of everything from the Salon, we'll go back on track in terms of reading all of the books that we had in mind. So 12 of the 14 we need. Give her a cup of Witching to Sane, to mend a broken heart, to color a pale soul. An ice drop. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. And yeah, Edicts Liminal will take that and level up Solutions and Separations, and of course by then we should have Pentiments and Precursors back. And then of course on top of all of that, we'll have a new book, the 1000 Threads. We'll have a vault which we've opened, so I believe we get at least one... I believe we get at least one text with a Newman in it. The skill is now level 3. Its power aspects have also increased. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. We'll earn that back. It's spring and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. Okay, the granite slab, so the bridge is already a mess, so we'll just add that to the pile. And the curious seashell. Brankrug is said to lie in the bounds where the world ends. Odd creatures have made their dying way to the beach. Okay, so let's go... we'll get pentiments and precursors taken care of. That's the one... Usually if I can, I like the one that has the largest number of lessons to get cleared out first. The main motive behind that is just so there's two parts to that. Number one, if something goes wrong, those are always the most difficult, right? So let's say that I was trying to level up Edicts Inviolable again, that would be 8 memories. If for some reason I blow it, well, that's going to mean 8 memories that I need to generate the next day. Not my favorite moment. But in addition, if I want to generate more memories, ones that I'll use for other ones, well, those are also the skills that are going to have, they're going to be blocking the other ones, right? Memories are unique. I can't have 2 hindsight or 2 satisfaction or something like that. So in general, even what I tend to find is I'm very big on habits. Sorry, when I say big on habit, number one, I'm not referring to that infuriating book. But what I mean is that I tend to find when I find something that works in a game, it's actually very hard for me to get out of that rut. I still do things in Cultist Simulator which are not efficient in that game, but largely reflect the fact that I played it very early in the game's development. And so the game may have changed around the way that I play. And again, that's not too bad because it's always fun to try new things. But with all of that to be said, the big idea here is if I do it for the little stuff that doesn't matter, like pentiments and precursors, and say, okay, I'm going to use the thing that has the largest number of memories, that will prepare me for the times that it matters. And essentially, the more helpful defaults I have, the more time I can spend thinking about some of the more interesting stuff. So, we're almost done. Trying to decide if it makes any sense for me to talk with Mrs. Kill, because we can only keep 1 memory overnight, and we already have the Savage Hymn available to us. Down to the Grecians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. And we also have... Oh, I think we'll just open up the vault. So, sealed vault. A heavy marble door sealed with red wax. A triple lock is chased with silver. So this will give me a lot to do with the consider verb around the time that I'm going to be trying to study all of these different books and get lessons. As I said before, these two will give particular information that I want to follow up on. However, I don't need to rush those either. The skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. This will give me a chance to reorganize the list. I am no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Also, I don't think I read the description for Edicts Inviolable when I got it up to level 9, so the precepts and occlusions and dissolutions... the precepts of occlusion and dissolution, their jealous enforcement is the nature of Calyptra. Oriflammes thanks you for your custom. 1,000 threads, the fate supplications of the matriarch of the well, recorded in darkness by her weavers and her daughters. So we might as well put it beside... as the sun is coarse, I believe because we start at 14? Nope, we have some 12s. Okay, so. I suppose we can just move the rest of these as well. At least one of these is directly related to a skill that I want to move up. Okay. Yeah, I think everything is kind of free time now. So let's think of some easy things that I can do. So we've already made the coffee and the tea. But it seems to me like we have another opportunity to go to Crowcross Sands and the Moor, even if we wind up just piling everything on the beach. Oh, I did say I was going to reorganize, so... And in fact, if I want, I can also go to the Gull Colony, which I don't always visit. Steal eggs from seabirds or find what the seabirds have stolen. The birds are furiously vigilant. And we've got a new place that we can check. Oh, it's actually more than... Sorry, this one is a crafting station, the Deep Lake Corals, where the wild few traffic with the tides. But the sea caves splash cautiously through the shallower tunnels, so I don't think we have any more tryst to work with, but we do have a health. And we can use furs and feathers in this case, I think. Echoes in the endless night. But yeah, just as a reminder, so in terms of audio, we have 2 more texts. I believe for film we have at least 1 more. I should maybe just double check. 3 more. So we've got Colors in the Liver, which we've read, but we have Experiment Beyond Sight, which will give us Edicts Inviolable, which basically is free for me now. We have The Open Head, which is an interesting one. That one gives us Disciplines of the Scar, which we've already committed, so again, those are kind of free agents too. And then the Admonitory Automata project, which gives us Lockworks and Clockworks. I believe that one is one of our lower level ones, which we haven't committed, so that we may make some decisions on. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 worth of odd jobs. Now, on top of those, we also have the books that I'm pursuing. So in this case, what is it? 3, 6, 12, 18, 24, 36. Hang on, I think I got that wrong. 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. I went from counting 3s to 6s. But yeah, double-digit texts for us to review, and then also there's the ones that house Newman. All right, the skill is now level 3. Its power aspects have also increased. So there are some texts that I want to read because they have information that will be relevant to what I want to achieve. Hey, we've got Knight97 and It Is D-Pain both hosting, which usually means that they have been co-hosting together. Doing podcasts without me, no doubt. But we know both of them from the Pointless Discord podcast. In fact, there was one other streamer, I think it was the first streamer that I met out of the lovely trio, Apocalypse, who I believe is only sort of privately streaming on her Discord channel. But a couple of wonderful and very supportive viewers. Let me take a quick minute here. Knight was first in, so I will shout him out. Now, Knight, I haven't caught you recently, so I don't know what you... Actually, I felt I said that the last time, too. I think one time you were playing Farming Simulator, but I don't think I've seen you... Or actually, you were also playing Factorio, I think, the last time that you visited. But I'll confess, I'm actually not sure if you were playing either of those recently, because I know it's been a little while. All sorts of random things. Okay, so I'd feel a little bit better about not knowing what it was then. And then, in any case, Knight, I like to consider myself a variety streamer, but clearly I've been doing Book of Hours for basically a year now. Knight97 is a true variety streamer. You can definitely check them out. And It Is D-Pain is somebody who, as I mentioned, does do quite a bit of streaming. Again, I'm assuming was playing the same game as Knight. But I do get to see, I do actually get to hang out with It Is D-Pain, and Knight, actually, for that matter, on the Pointless Discourse podcast. Both of them are fine appreciators of science fiction, literature, and film. A lot of fun to talk with. And It Is T-Pain, actually, I'd seen you for a while doing cooking streams, and I don't know if I just have not been in attendance for some of the cooking streams that you've done or if you've stopped those, but those were definitely fun to watch. And we've got Big Daddy Yarn. I believe you came from the raid. If you did, welcome. I am considerably less entertaining than your two gracious hosts, but I will do my best for the time that we have left. And for those of you that have just joined, we're playing Book of Hours, the House of Light expansion by Weather Factory. I am a big fan of this developer. I'm a big fan of this game. And so now we're going to condense the complicated lore into a short little 6-hour tutorial, which you all can enjoy. Now we're playing ostensibly this game. If you're not familiar with it, you play the librarian of sort of an ancient and occult library in Cornwall called Brankrug. The tutorial of the game basically has you washing up at St. Brendan's Cove after a shipwreck, and you make your way through the village. You cross the Cucurbit Bridge, and you start unlocking all of the different rooms of the house and sort of learn about what happened here. At the start of the game, you're introduced to the idea that the house was abandoned after a fire 7 years before, but you find that it's actually reasonably well intact. You still have to restore it, but that's kind of the first part of the game. But you'll notice that a very large part of the house is now open. And I'm not zooming in because there's lots of cool things in here that some of you may want to be surprised by. But we're unlocking sort of the last few rooms down here. But while we're doing that, this is a wonderful game that gives you the simulation of sort of being in an ancient house with lots of interesting things and books and just sort of the ordering and organization of knowledge. But you were also given a lot of these fragments of what's going on, and you need to make sense of them by piecing the pieces together. And because usually books will be drawn from a deck, you're not always given the same fragment, or you're given the same fragments, but you're not necessarily given them in the same order. Circumstance will often determine when you read certain books over another. And this leads to this wonderful experience of getting lots of different perspectives on this big world that the developers have created for this game. It's known as The Secret Histories, and there are 2 video games and 1 tabletop experience that take place in it. So very unique game, definitely one that I think very highly of. And for those of you who are interested, there's an advent calendar that the developers are doing, and the item for the advent calendar, the most recent real world one, is actually a Reddit AMA, which will be hosted on the 13th of December in their subreddit. So for those of you who are interested in that, you can definitely go in and basically ask them what the heck is going on. I can definitely understand that it is T-Pain. Anyways, there's something that I enjoyed. Please do check out those 2 lovely streamers. I am, however, going to try and do my duty as a streamer and actually play the game, which does occasionally happen around here every once in a while. If anybody does have questions about the game, though, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to answer them as best as I can. I just appreciate that, especially when you see something this far advanced in the game, it can sometimes feel like, LOL, this game is for smart people. You'll never get it, which is not a feeling I want people to have about this game. So we just opened this vault. The Silver Vault. Did the Curia of the Isle construct this vault, or were not they were not long? Most of them were not long, so they were not obliviates, that society of unseen immortals bound by 3 oaths. But this vault does seem to reference the oath called the Silver Chain, which forbade men to lie with women or women with men. For what may come is not always the crime of the sky, yet that is a furious danger. So we have 2 texts which house Newman, the Shretic Book of Suns and the Turquoise Hand. So here I'm going to move both of these upstairs. We can catalog this Dawn Period book right away. The game really has become quite a bit more responsive after this update, so good on Weather Factory for doing that. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's dawn period, sometime before the end of the first millennium, commonly reckoned. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. So, you have a little bit of a microcosm of how this game works. So this is, I think, reasonably described as a role-playing game. However, it's a little bit like, I don't want to oversell this here, but it's a little bit like saying that Disco Elysium is a role-playing game. This is true. It, however, does not always do a good job of conveying what the experience of playing that game is going to be like. So if you think that you're going to play even something like Planescape Torment, or like Skyrim or something like that. Skyrim's even further away, but even something like Planescape Torment, it would be fair to say that Disco Elysium is a different experience from what you might expect playing sort of those Infinity Engine style games. Doesn't mean it's not an RPG, it just means that you may be expecting a few things that you don't normally see. And that's also true of Book of Hours, right? So I don't have a character that I'm moving on the screen. I don't have any units that are attacking or anything like that. But we do have stats. So we have, in this case, elements of the soul. And you can kind of think of these as attributes. And in fact, they'll give you a description. The human soul is composed of 9 elements, and this is one. Most other things have simpler souls. Each soul card can be used once a day for the kinds of things you do with your soul. That usually means talking to people or crafting. And so the parts of the soul, we've got core, Arab, fet, health, metal, Faust, shapt, whist, and tryst. Excuse me. And you get descriptions. In fact, the game gives you a little bit of a personality test at the start. You have to pick what your most defining elements of the soul are. So, whist, name, memory, that part which remains. Most librarians know that books have souls. Most librarians hope for books with simple souls of whist and nothing else. So those are your sort of attributes again. But if you have skills, there are skills in this game, and there are different levels for skills. So you may notice these little icons down here. These are principles. These are sort of things that are operating in the world. They're sort of these essence or fundamental aspects of everything that you can find in this world. And they'll be, if you ever had to do philosophy, so they're a little bit like Plato's forms, you can almost think of. And in this case, for the Inks of Revelation, the related aspects for this are Lantern and Moth. But the Inks of Revelation is at level 7, so it has a higher level than, say, something like the Great Signs and the Great Scars, which has Grail and Knock, but only 3 and 2. So you can level up skills, and the way you level up skills is by getting memories. You combine different memories, different experiences into advancements in knowledge. And eventually, you'll take those skills, you'll apply them to the Tree of Wisdoms, which I like to think of is a kind of a worldview that you're developing, because there are descriptions. So, for instance, the End, when we applied our skill Sights and Sensations, to mix the rarest colors, a merciless detachment is required. By applying that to the tree of branch on the Tree of Wisdoms called Hushery, the End. The artist knows that their every work could be improved. The artist understands perfect work can never be completed. And those can be used to get more elements of the soul. So again, is this your daddy's RPG? Absolutely not. Is this an RPG that is interesting and it does interesting things with the conventions of RPGs to tell a different type of story? Absolutely. This, I think, is one of the more interesting games that has come out that really defies description in a good way. And it's one of the reasons I like taking the time to talk about it and share it. But let us open the Mottled Casket, a treasure donated by a disgraced Tragularis assassin. I almost feel like we should read this after we read the book about the Traguleri, but we don't have that much time left in the day, so... Something unregarded. What overlooked delight? The next thing we'll try and work on is the Sealed Vault. Now, we can try and give this a try, but it's going to be tricky with the 14 scale. So actually, I'm going to take a minute here to work this out, because I may need to like cook beef or something like that. So if we use the miner, we get 2 to start off with, and we can use the health to get another scale. So that brings us up to 3. So the earthquake name clearly is the best option. That gives us 6 scale to apply. So that takes us up to 9, and then we use the hourglass. So that brings us up to 10. And at that point, that invites the question, do we have a 2 scale? We may. So I know in terms of food, I believe the fish should... Oh, nope, spoke too soon. Well, the cuckoo honey, if I want. I think I've used most of the cuckoo honey though, so I'm really giving up something special if I do that. Interesting. So all the fish have just 1 scale and 2 moon. Okay, so yeah, this would be the point where I consider cooking something special for the miner. Now, Skin Shuck Mead, if I want, does have 2 scale, but let's see if we can do better. So Domaine Reveline, nope. So I think if I go for Strathcoin Whiskey... Okay, so Strathcoin... brings us up to 12. So that just invites the question, where do I get that last 2 scale from? And if I don't have any food items, that will do the trick. Well, again, we've got the cuckoo honey, but I want to preserve that. I'll go back to my trusty cooking sheet, because these have not committed to memory yet. Okay, so the ones that only give us 1, King's Luck Pie, Game Pie, Ham and Egg Casserole, Pilchards on Toast, Stargazy Pie, Mushroom Potato Bake, Pickled Mackerel, Pickled Pilchard, Scrambled Egg, Boiled Egg, Jugged Pheasant, and Roast Pheasant. The ones that give us more scale, so Moli au jus, the problem with that one is we don't have any other molis, so that'll kind of limit our use for that if we want. Marinated roast beef and roast beef. Egg croquettes. So egg croquettes is kind of a hard one to justify because that involves giving up the crusty bread as well. And then finally for 3, we've got the honey haunted amber pumpkin pie and the knot cake. So I think the obvious answer here is to cook some more beef and then we just order another one. We can do that right now, so we'll use the core here. Beef roast it, or perhaps marinate it first if you have something intoxicating for the marinade. Roast a beef joint, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and scale. And we'll get a... Oh, it's for the order form. Is this the one that I want? Yes. Maybe 3 beef? Order a joint of beef from TRN Limited. Carefully mark the creamy paper. TRN selects its clients carefully, one might say eccentrically. They rarely advertise, but in their long history they have never lacked for custom. Order a joint of beef from TRN Limited. There'll be 1 more of those and then we'll send it off. I'll maybe double check that there's nothing else I want from TRN, but... The 3 isn't a bad number, but it is going to be a little tricky to find a place for all of them, so... And just for reference to show what a jerk I am, Perenculate, deadly. Use gloves to read text produced with this pigment, an ink of power, sometimes called an unsanctioned ink. Now I know there's a bunch of people on the subreddit who want to pretend that they're the ones to discover filling out the forms like this. I've been doing it since the game came out. So I was doing it before it was cool to kill the people in the warehouse. But yeah, our other options, Naveen Parchment, Arsenic, Desiccated Witchworms, Schloss Jannings, Strathcoyne Whiskey, Roscragan Whiskey, Domaine Reveline, Lambic Bruslende, Armagnac Drinking Cocoa Pheasant, plums, beef, and almonds. Maybe plums, but I'm happy enough to mail off the TRN order here. We really just need the beef. The postmistress keeps the gate to the wider world. In her left hand is the lightning, which is to say the telegraph, and in her right the thunder, which is to say the only telephone in Brandkrug. Before her lies the cash register, which accepteth the greater currency and returneth its lesser children. Provide money equal to the cost, the postmistress will make out a postal order. So this requires 36. We can use can't use the florin, but we can use the crown. Complete the order. The postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. Alright, I have a little organizing to do here, but... Nope. And here we have the Book of Maya. Oh! Wait, surely I have sand stories. We have sea stories. That would be so unusual if I went this far without having all the skills. But not impossible. Alright, so we'll put you beside the green Jasper tablet. This didn't have any curses on it, but it is a Hyksos text. So I might bump this one up just so I can be sure that I have the relevant skills. Okay, and again, we're really have our choice in terms of how we spend the rest of the day here. And we've got a Viper Egg, a Serpent in Waiting. We have Contraband Jetsam, so that'll be fun to open up in my Consider Verb. Flung Overboard and Furtive Haste. We've got an Awakened Feather, alive to every draft and spark. I think we can probably try and fit it in here. Nope, no room. Nope. And finally, the Phosphorescent Scrapings, rendered inert but still luminous. We've got a lot of this. Alright, so that was a nice little diversion, but I think I'm okay. January Sanguinary, also called Sanguis Sultandis, or by the ignorantly superstitious, the true blood of St. Januarius. So I'm going to move this around, so we'll put the bitter black salts on in the dispensary shelf. We'll put the other January Sanguinary beside. Nice traits, right? 5 heart, 3 knock, 3 sky. I wouldn't turn it down, but in this case I just don't have much use for it right now. And here's our roast beef joint. Our fathers of old were robust, stout, and strong, and kept open house with good cheer all day long, which made their plump tenants rejoice in this song. Oh, the roast beef of Old England, and Old English roast beef. Grub Street Opera by Henry Fielding, and we'll put the drippings somewhere where it won't do any harm. By the almonds and the milk. Alright, let's pour out some Strathcoyne whiskey. We're not going to use this until tomorrow, but we might as well get it ready for the miner we'll hire. Poured out. The collector has collected a distillery, it seems. And I figure what I can do here, seeing as the bottle's mostly empty, we'll probably just serve it here. That'll give me a spare glass that I can just sort of keep down here. I still have the Strathcoin whiskey in the Violet Chamber, and then I can order some more if I have to. Okay. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. So I get to keep a memory overnight if I want. The only one that I hung on to was the Savage Hymn, so easy choice to make. Dream on a memory. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Had I been thinking, I probably would have been able to open up another container, but it's a little late now, so we'll have two of these to open later. One is the Ambered Casket, a treasure stored by an adept on the cusp of ascension to Lantern Long, and then the Royal Casket, a treasure stored by a king before his final sacrifice. So the plans for tomorrow, I think I'm going to have to wrap it up today just because it's almost midnight, and I have been streaming for the appointed time, even with a small interruption in terms of the connection. But we're going to try and open up the sealed vault. So a heavy granite door sealed with white wax, a triple lock ornamented with ivory and black nephrite. I will also note here, heavy iron door sealed with black wax, a triple lock of an ornamented iron. So again, I think we've got the three flowers of the tree represented here as well. But we're going to want to get 14 knock or 14 scale. I think the 14 scale is what we're going to go for when we get a hireling. The one that's going to be a challenge here is the edge or the knock. The best I can probably do for a guaranteed hire would be to hire Denzel with the edge. The challenge there, though, is I don't actually have a top-tier edge memory yet. So that is the Invincible Audacity. I should be able to get it because most of my skills are at a higher level, but it's just the difference between knowing that I've made that before and have it in my inventory versus taking the time to put it together, which may require more elements of the soul and time than I was originally planning on. That's further down the road, though. Those are really the last two rooms that I need to open. So slowly folding in the different characters. I'm slightly prioritizing the next vault just because we're not going to have spring forever to work with, which means I'm not always going to be able to hire one of the miners. When summer comes by, the miner will be replaced with the barber, and then moving on from summer, we'll get to autumn with the orchard keeper, and then finally the fisherman, which is focused on moon. But yeah, so in addition to trying to open the remaining rooms, the other thing that I want to try and do is, one, level up skills that can potentially go into the Tree of Wisdoms. So the logic behind that is, if I wind up in a situation with a Salon where I think Faust would be a decent example of this. I only have 3 of these. When I do a Salon, I can have up to 5, I believe, possibly 6 different events happen. So I've never had a situation where it keeps asking me the same element of the soul again and again and again. But I want to at least allow for that as a possibility. So the answer to that, for me, is to just go through the Tree of Wisdoms, have the option of committing something to the Tree of Wisdoms to be able to get that element of the soul if I'm in a pinch. Also, if I just happen to level everything up to the levels that I need, I can commit those as well. So the way that I'm approaching that is I've got my little list here. So a few streams ago, we worked out how I want to commit things to the Tree of Wisdoms. So for Bossk, the next one that's going to be committed is Insects and Nectars, but that one after is going to need Rites of the Roots. Insects and Nectars will get committed at 7. Rites of the Roots gets committed at 8. Right now it's at 4. So I would want 4 additional Rites of the Roots lessons. I have 2 waiting for me right up here with the green jasper tablet. After that, Furs and Feathers. Well, Furs and Feathers is way, way, way off. Right, this is a scale and sky, and if I'm going to bring this up to 9, I need to find 7 memories somewhere. So likewise, for preservation, we have everything that we need to commit. So that's Stone Stories, Trides Mahaira, and Edicts Inviolable. Edicts Inviolable was the one at 9. All of this stuff is ready to go. Leaves and Thorns, likewise, is level 9 for Birdsong. That's the only one we haven't committed yet. Now, Horamakastri is another one that's got a little bit of a bottleneck. So we leveled Sacralamea previously, but we now have Drums and Dances at level 7, so that's ready to go. And the next ones that I'd like to do would be Anbury and Lapidary, which is level 8. So again, we've got that one at quite a low level right now. I think it's 4. So yeah, another 4 for that one. And then Sacra Solis Invicti is going to be level 9, and much like the Furs and Feathers, not even close to having that at the top level. So that's another big one that I'm going to put the effort into. I want to save up a bunch of Lantern and Sky for that. Ithistry will start at 5, so we've got Spices and Savors. We're good to go there. Purifications and Exaltations would be levels... Spices and Savors, Pyroglyphics are ready to go. Purifications and Exaltations will require Sky or Lantern, just like Sacra Solis Invicti, so I basically need to double the effort on that one. And then Solutions and Separations, which needs to be at level 9. We currently have it at level 3, so a similar long journey there. Finally, of the things that I need to level up, Arcades and Narcotics, Nectar and Grail. So that one's not as hard. It's currently at level 3. I need it at level 6. And then Serpents and Venoms, which is currently at level 3. That I need at level 8. And then Pentiments and Precursors, I need to get to level 7. Although at least here I've got it at level 4. So that's going to take 3 more memories. Finally, the one that I haven't worked out yet, committed yet to, is Hushery, which has Inks of Revelation, Glass Blowing, and Vessel Crafting, and Quenchings and Quellings. The good news there, though, is that all of these are at the levels that they need to be. It's just a question of committing them. So in practical terms, I only have, I think, 9, I think, skills that I need to level up. The problem is some of them actually require a lot of work. So the plan behind this is really to just try and say, okay, so where specifically are these coming from, right? Is there something that needs Moon that I can apply to Sickle and Eclipse? And if there isn't something with Moon, we don't read that until, we have what we need. So Green Jasper Tablet becomes a priority then, and so on and so forth. It's not a question whether or not we can read the books. I'm pretty sure we can read every single book that the game throws at us. It's more a question about what books do I read that enable my current goal of committing certain memories to the Tree of Wisdoms. But anyways, that was a long explanation of stuff that I'm going to be doing on Monday. So if you forget any of that, there will be a quiz. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for Night 97, and it is D-Pain for the host. I know a couple of you have seen Book of Hours. I just didn't get to do as much of the gameplay as I normally would when you stop by. I hope you'll have a very good night yourself, Tikri. Let's take a look. Oh, I will take a quick minute here. I did mention the Advent calendar before, so just a reminder that the latest so there are real world and in-game rewards. To give you an idea of some of the real world ones, on the 3rd they did do 50% off their very nice notebooks, and they're based in the UK, so it's noon UK time. But basically, if you check this in once a day, you'll either get an indicator about what's waiting for you in game when winter comes. The tree will be available over the course of December. So it stops getting new things on December 25th. But if you want to experience the fun of the Advent calendar, the tree will be in game until the end of the month here. So no rush to experience the fun. But yeah, for those of you looking for more real world items, definitely recommend checking out that list once a day. The latest real world Advent calendar item was an AMA, or announcing an AMA. So on Friday the 13th, December 13th, so that's a week from today, we'll be able to chat with the creators of Book of Hours and ask them all sorts of questions, and presumably the lore ones will be given a appropriately enigmatic response. Now, let's see who's online. So there's a few people on. Let me just take a quick look here. So the tricky part here is there's actually somebody playing Cultist Simulator, and there's somebody playing Book of Hours, but I feel like I should raid the Book of Hours streamer. So Rat King Levi is playing Book of Hours. Now, I will confess, I feel like I've raided this streamer before, but I don't remember much. But they didn't yell at me. they didn't say something awful. So I think we'll rate it. When I can, it's nice to host the people playing the same game, and we'll do it here. I will also mention we got a couple of streamers who I like who are currently streaming. We've got Kilgore Trout and Will Shand. But as always, if I can, it's nice to show some support for the Book of Hours. In terms of my stuff, I will be back on Monday. I don't expect any more interruptions that aren't technical ones for the rest of the month. I will be doing a stream on Christmas. I'm not sure about the time yet, but I'll work that all out as time goes by. But I am hoping to try and find some kind of Christmas story to read to all of you. In any case, something for another time. Thank you for watching. I will see you all in the future. Take care.